Welcome into the show today. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are here live on the Pillar Exterior stage where I think Dallas just lost again.
Yeah.
Not good.
I don't know. Sometimes I just absolutely laugh.
Why is that?
Because I talked myself maybe into it a little bit. Yep. During the Minnesota Timberwolves series,
Mm-hmm.
where I was like, these offenses, I don't know. And then Dallas kind of figured out a way to score. But I knew I hated their offense. I hate how much one guy just dribbles the basketball.
Yes, that's accurate.
And it is super sticky, and it's a horrible matchup because Boston has like 3.5, 4, they have 4 almost what I would call elite level defenders. Derek White is
White, Jaylen Brown,
and Drew Holiday.
And Holiday, yeah. Holiday's probably the best one.
So it's like, how is this going to work? And it doesn't. It just doesn't. So, and I feel like we've done a complete full circle. So not a 180. You and I, my friend, have done a 360.
Okay.
On me dropping the hammer on my friend and your friend Luka. I started out by saying, debating with you when he came into the league. I can't stand his style of play.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone round and round with you about Luka. I'm back on it, and it's even worse now.
Yeah.
It's even worse now because, number one, his shot selection is terrible. Number two, he's extremely unlikable, which I told you 5 years ago I would try to get over.
Mm-hmm. Haven't been able to do it?
No.
That's fair.
I can't get over it. And the other thing is he won't defend. And when you're playing a team that plays 5 out, you stick out like an absolute sore thumb.
Yeah. The compilations from the first couple games are embarrassing. They're James Harden level.
But it's incredible. And my favorite is he'll shoot a bad shot or some contested shot, and he'll inevitably not get a foul call.
Yeah, he'll whine about something.
And he's the last one down the court.
Doesn't even get back.
And meanwhile, Boston shot the rock.
Yep, it's over.
I'm like, no one in the organization can really control you because you are a prolific, you're a great offensive player.
Prolific's the word for his offense.
Yeah, I mean, who said it 2 days ago? Maybe it was KG. I think Garnett said Luka is the only one that can surpass or catch LeBron in terms of scoring, which will never happen.
No,
because
Luka doesn't take care of his body in a way that allow him to play for 20
that's number one.
Years.
Yeah. That's number one. Yeah. I can't see. I'll be happy to see Luka get to 10.
Yeah, if he gets to 10, 12, which is a short career for a star now, that would be a good effort for him.
I just don't understand the.
And now, if he does take care of his body because he's never relied on athleticism, he will last forever.
Yeah, and listen, you can attest to this just because it started with you. This isn't like piling on because they look so bad. Like,
no,
I've had
we've been having this conversation about Luka for years.
Yeah,
for actual years.
Yeah,
like back at the old place here. But even before I was doing radio over
and I
there.
used to try to find ways to be petty and always bring it up when I thought he had come back after his initial performance. I'm like, we still like Luka, huh? But then he got it going again.
Yep.
And I was like, man, I may have to come around. No.
So here's my issue with Luka. I loved the talent coming out of Europe. That's what I was super high on because there were some people that are like, oh, he's not good enough to play. Like, he's not going to be good. It's like, no, this guy's got it.
Yeah. He's playing against grown-ups at 17, 18
and
years old.
And winning the MVP of the league. Like, look at all these guys that come over from Europe and are really good at the same age and barely put up any stats. Mm-hmm. Like, the NBA will draft guys in the lottery putting up 4 points a game in Europe and be like, this guy's going to be a star. And half the time they're right.
Can't dispute it.
Okay, so I'm looking at this. I'm seeing everything that he's doing. And I'm like, no, this guy's for real, right? That was my number. That's why I was such a Luka defender early,
Mhm.
was the people that just didn't understand basketball enough to be like, I don't care if he doesn't have a 7-foot wingspan, and I don't care if he doesn't have a 38-inch vertical. That guy's good at basketball. Okay. Then I got super frustrated because I thought, and I've said this, I've used this exact analogy, and I'll say it again. I thought he could have decided to play like Larry Bird, and instead he decided to play like James Harden.
Mm.
And that pissed me off. Because when you've got a chance to do something truly transcendent in a game, and then you just choose to play the crappier way, that makes me really angry.
Mhm.
Because I love basketball, and he took away from what we possibly could have seen. Made me mad.
Do you want to be the new gatekeeper?
My only, maybe. I mean, I do gatekeep on a ton of stuff. I'm not gonna lie about that.
You
The
mad?
the only thing that I was holding out for was I didn't know for sure if he was playing that like that because he felt he had to, or if he was playing like that because he wanted to, right? Because of the roster around him. I didn't know. They didn't do a great job building around him early. And then they brought in Kyrie this year, or last year. I didn't think it was going to work. It didn't really last year. But then there were stretches this year where I was like, oh, he looks better. He's holding the ball less. They're moving the ball a little bit better. They had stretches this year where I was like, oh, maybe he didn't want to play like this the whole time, or maybe he's grown up, whatever. And then we get into, crunch time, into cutting time, and all of a sudden it's back to ISO, this heliocentric nonsense. Kyrie takes a turn, then I take a turn, and then the antics on top of all of that. He has been a super tough hang as a guy that was adamant that he was a very good and he is a very good basketball player. I just don't like the way he's decided to run his career.
Yeah, and Shane, I'm sending this to you. I want you to get this queued up because it's rare that you'll see a star get this kind of that's not named LeBron.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe Tatum, but Tatum isn't quite on
Tatum's not on that level.
on Luka's level in terms of taking games over. Although I still feel like Ravi, I said this before. I don't think I'm a die. I think I may die on this hill too.
Mm-hmm.
He's listen. I get it.
He's really, really good.
The number 2 thing and whatever the analogy was you kind of gave him, but he's really good.
He is. Listen.
I get the lack of elite athleticism
when
and
I talk about
peak change of direction, but dude is
when I talk about Tatum, I'm not talking about him in a sense of like, oh, I don't think he's good at basketball.
Mhm.
I think that's how people mishear me sometimes. I'm starting from the assumption, like if I'm even having this conversation about like, are you a 1 or are you a Lulla star or whatever stupid name I put on it, like you're starting at a place where you're incredible. Like that's the start. That's the bare minimum is being incredible, right?
I have it in queue.
In order to get up to that next level, that's where I'm making these differentiations. So I don't want people to hear me and be like, oh, he thinks Tatum sucks at basketball. That's not the case. He's awesome. My thought.
You feel like he's been criticized at a high level for his basketball acumen.
He's been criticized. Well, so he was kind of a victim of his own success early, right?
Which is kind of the way you want it.
Which happens a lot. But, I mean, think about the way a lot of these other guys that are sort of in these positions, they get kind of a ramp-up period.
God, did you get that hint of cigarette smoke?
Yeah, that was weird. I don't know what happened
All
there.
right, keep going. I'm sorry.
There's most of these guys that end up in these elite positions or in these elite conversations have the ramp-up period, right? Mm-hmm. He made conference finals in year 1 or 2. So it was like, oh, this guy might be able to win a ton. And all of a sudden that narrative got started. And it's like, well, why hasn't he won more? It's like, well, because he probably shouldn't have won yet. It just he got one early, and you're like, I don't really know what to do here, right? But look at every other guy: LeBron, Steph, D Wade even took a few years, although his was pretty quick. But he had Shaq come in too.
It's funny you bring up D Wade because I just think over the last 20 years he's arguably the most underappreciated.
He's really he's incredible
player.
Before LeBron got there, he
was incredible.
Yeah. Like it was legitimate. He was a top 3 or 4 player in the league before LeBron went there. Yeah. But I mean, you want to go back to Jordan. You want to go back to most of these guys until you go back to
talk about a guy coming out where you wouldn't have been blown away with much of anything.
D Wade.
Yeah. Couldn't shoot it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't shoot the 3.
Pretty good athlete, but
wasn't an elite level
not
ball
crazy.
handler.
but just incredible basketball is like skills and instincts. But my point is, like, all the way until you get back to Bird and Magic, which both ended up in incredible situations, you don't have these superstars that just won right away. So when you have a guy that kind of gets there a little earlier than you would think,
toiling, if you will,
it works against him, which isn't probably fair. And that's probably where part of my pushback on Tatum is like, hey, he might become that guy. He is not currently that guy. Stop it.
I say the same thing that I said when the playoffs first started. For a team that is so criticized,
they're really
they
good.
are really, really good.
Well, and here's the thing that I didn't know, right? I knew the East was bad. I didn't know how good that meant Boston was. Boston's really good.
I don't even care what it whatever it is that they do. I get it. The shot selection. I mean, what they shoot 15 threes in the first 7 minutes last night, but I get it. Like I get aesthetically what maybe kind of like
that's probably
stand around and shoot jump shots, but God, they're just really good, man.
That's probably part of my issue with Boston is it doesn't, for having the level of talent that they do, it doesn't look like
it looks like pickup, doesn't it?
It doesn't look like I want it to. Yeah. For being that talented, I need it to look better.
It's just how somebody is always a viable scoring option. It's not the second rotation; it's the third.
Yeah,
and you may have to get to the fourth,
which is
and
what
when
kills
and when you have an unwilling defender. So I don't. Listen, I get it. The Mavs have to. Their role players have to be better, and you get the hard hitting and analysis before the game starts, which we got to get into because I'm not going to bang on like ABC and ESPN. I should just say ABC because part of my gripe is the fact that they say ESPN on ABC and it's ruins,
just on ABC.
It ruins the I'm gonna get into that here in a sec, but it's just aggravating. I mean that and YouTube TV.
Mm-hmm.
I mean I'm a YouTube TV subscriber. How much do you think I need to see it though?
What do you mean, like the logo?
Yeah,
probably not a lot.
Okay. Again, I'll get back to that. But that's one of the reasons why I showed you the clips yesterday of Missoula, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, anybody want to talk about the adjustments we made from game 1 to game 2? And he kind of does that little dirty look and he walks off. Like they do a lot of things that don't maybe really. I know. Listen, I get it.
I'm not ready to give Missoula credit yet.
You're giving it the growly face.
I'm not ready to give Missoula credit yet.
I was just listening to the guys. Who's it? Jaylen Brown that says he shows them old UFC videos of guys getting off the deck and being calm during the tap out. It's like I like when we said this yesterday or the day before. He may just be the right guy for that team's.
Right place, right time
to press their buttons for their emotional psyche.
Yeah,
because he's kind of eccentric.
He's goofy.
Do you think this was making its rounds last night? And when I heard it live, I almost couldn't believe it because I wondered what he did to him. But fair or foul on these comments last night from Brian Windhorst.
Luka fell onto the ground there in an unacceptable position to put himself in with 4 minutes left with 5 fouls. And then immediately looks at the bench and says, you better bleeping challenge it, as if it's the bench's fault that he just made a terrible play. I'm standing here in the Mavericks tunnel. Over there is the Celtics tunnel. That's where the winners are. If Luka's ever going to be a winner coming out of this tunnel here, he is going to have to use what's happened in this finals as a learning experience. His defensive performance is unacceptable. He is a hole on the court. The Celtics are attacking him. They are ahead in this series because they have attacked him defensively. And you've got a situation here where Luka is complaining about the officiating. They have begged him. They have talked with him. They have pleaded with him. He is costing his team because of how he treats the officials. He's a brilliant player. He does so many things well. They are here because of how he did. His performance in this game is unacceptable and the reason why the Mavericks are not going to win. He's got to get over this. The fact that he came out after the game and blamed the officials showed me he's nowhere close yet. So maybe over the summer, somebody will get to him because nobody with the Mavericks or anybody else in his life has. And that's where the Mavericks are at this point. They're never going to get to this tunnel with the trophy if he doesn't improve those aspects of his game.
Fair or foul, first of all?
Fair, I think.
Can you imagine Windhorst being that critical of anyone else at that level in the NBA? You certainly know he would never say that about LeBron.
Right. Yeah. So the comments themselves in a vacuum, I think, are fair.
Right? He that's one of those things, right? Like he probably told no lies.
Yeah, but that's also not generally what he does.
It was kind of
It's
weird. It
sort
was
of out of
almost
character
like
for him.
it's almost like I don't know, like Luka maybe stole something from him.
Yeah, like there was almost a, I don't know if a vendetta is the right word, but there seemed to be
Like
hard.
what made him mad? Like
It
he
seemed
was
like there was
angry.
hard feelings
Yeah,
about, and maybe it's and
I maybe as a guy that loves the NBA, he's basically saying he's not a good ambassador.
so
of
that's what I was just gonna say, right? That's why I get frustrated, whether it's with Tatum, whether it's with Luka. I just went on this rant about how I felt like Luka was wasting this ability to play this beautiful game, or the game in a beautiful way, right?
Yeah.
So like maybe it's that, like it makes me mad, maybe it's just as simple as that. But in the vacuum of the comments themselves, he didn't say anything that wasn't true.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, if Luka doesn't even become passable on defense, where the fact and that's to get back to Missoula for a second. That's why I kind of gave you that side eye when you're talking about him, like his adjustments comment. It's like the adjustment of what? Consistently attacking the worst defender on the court? That wasn't really an adjustment. That's kind of
Well, I mean, you do have to make a decision to double and not to double.
I know.
They got away from getting the ball out of his hands. Now they'll let him kind of do his thing. I mean, I'm not Jerry West, but I can see it.
Here's what bothers me, I think, a little bit about Missoula. He doesn't pass the vibe check. I don't know why he just doesn't. I hear him talk, and I'm like, I don't know. There's something about that guy I don't trust. Second, which means nothing. I mean, that's just my whatever. Second, I don't know that he's totally self-aware about what makes him successful. Like, if it is the right person, right place, right time thing, yes, you have to have a certain level of basketball acumen.
Why does it have to be so deep, though? Why can't he just be maximizing as an individual? Why can't he just be like, I'm here, I'm present?
Because then he says it in a snarky, like, listen, if you're doing your job, that's fine.
That is so petty.
Maybe
that is so petty.
But listen, if you're doing your job and you're like, everybody in the world was talking about how intricate Danny Hurley's offense was, right? Everybody. How many times did you hear?
It's a Trev Alberts moment.
Everybody.
How many times did you hear Danny Hurley bring up his offensive scheme or adjustments on his own, unprompted?
Never.
Exactly. For whatever reason, the Missoula thing bothers me because I don't think he understands why he's successful in that role.
But wait a minute, though. Of all the criticism the guy gets, he can't take 10 seconds to. And he walked off. He didn't wait for.
That's worse. He wasn't even like giving.
What? That shouldn't. Like you got to be secure enough for a guy to defend himself and be okay with that. You can't be mad
but
at him.
He's not even defending the right thing. Is my point.
Who are you?
I'm just a guy watching on TV.
Like, why do you get this? He's the one that has to read the papers every day.
Yeah,
he's the one that has.
I got to read the comment section every day.
So it's like. If he wants to take a moment to think, he has just because the assertion is that he just rolls the ball out there.
No.
That's not what you think he thinks.
No, because
that's not what you just tried to.
No, I was gonna finish.
That
something.
He's the razor. Reason.
I was gonna finish something, and you got mad at me in the middle.
I don't listen. Life's too short to be mad at you.
There has to be a certain level of basketball acumen to be where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not taking that away from him. But I don't think it's his basketball acumen that has made this team work. It's the ability to manage the personalities. Like we said about NBA coaching a few days ago, it's his ability to manage his personalities of kind of a weird team.
All right, so which is it? Because when we were talking about managing personalities, and we talked to a couple guys like Sean Devaney, we talked to Rashad Phillips, we said, you know what, in playoffs and in crunch time, in 2-3 day turnarounds, that's when coaching really matters. Anthony Tolliver said the exact same thing. I get the managing the personalities part, right? That's 82 games, but they won 64 of them, right? And
I think in really difficult playoff series, that is what makes the difference. When you've got the best player on the team the best player on the other team that's never leaving the floor, that gets blown by in a single dribble every time, how many adjustments do you have to make?
Are we going to act like the Mavs had it easy in terms of getting through the Western Conference?
No, the Mavs had it way harder.
Okay, so they're a pretty good basketball team, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just
Pretty good matchup team that I think got fortunate in some of their matchups as well, because I think Denver would beat the snot out of them. I thought this was a weird.
Denver would probably be the closest thing to what Boston does.
Like, it was a weird. Like, I thought the Mavs got super fortunate in the fact that, and not that Minnesota's not good, but Minnesota was a really bad matchup.
Well, you don't have to guard. I understand what you're saying.
Minnesota was a really bad matchup for Denver.
I understand.
Denver would have been a really bad matchup for Dallas.
But isn't that part of it, though?
Yeah. But the luck? The matchup luck?
Understanding the matchups.
Okay, but he doesn't control the matchups. Like, if the Mavs have to play Denver, they're not here.
Wow, he just gets no burn, huh? Just
I think he's really. I think I agree on the fact that he's done a.
I'm not trying to tell you he's Naismith. What I'm trying to tell you is,
I don't know that Naismith would have done great in today's modern game. If I'm being honest.
Hey, listen, he had the forethought enough to come up with peach baskets. Okay,
he's just out there and he's like, "What's happening here? What happened to the cages?"
I just can't. But like the devil just can't get his due. Just not even for a second. You just mind made up.
I will give him his due that he's at least got the requisite level of basketball acumen to be in the position he's in. But the thing that makes, if anything, makes him special, it's not the adjustments and X's and O's and whatever.
I didn't even give him that kind of accolade. I'm not even saying he's top 12 coaches in the NBA. What I'm saying is, if a guy took 25 seconds to say, "Hey, does anybody want to talk about the adjustments from game 1 to game 2?" and then waits and nobody says anything and he walks off. Like, he's not rubbing it in your face. What he's trying to say is, you know what? Like, this is harder than you guys make it seem.
Unless his next line was, "My assistants have done a great job," I'm not hearing it.
Oh, my goodness.
Coming up on the show today, we got Jim Hendry, former Creighton coach and a baseball lifer, at 7:45. We've got Nick De La Torre at 8:30, talk about Florida baseball. Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider, 8:45. Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 at 9. We'll wrap up the show with John Rathouz to talk a little U.S. Open.
Tigers off to a good start.
That's DBM, Ravi, Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We are back here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. DB.
What up?
How you doing?
I'm good. I enjoy listening to Coach Campbell.
Like
I said, that's a guy, he probably wouldn't enjoy it because he doesn't like talking about himself.
Mm-hmm.
But he's definitely a guy I would take on recruiting visits.
I just want to follow him around.
Yeah, he
doesn't have to talk to me. I just want to follow him around.
He's ridiculously thorough. He's extremely humble.
I'll say, you know what I liked about him? Every time something would come up, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm not an expert in that. That's why I hired this person.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in that. That's why I hired this person."
His humility. Who does he sound like?
Rule.
It's like,
yeah.
His humility is pretty top shelf. Really, really cool presentation about, and this is partly like full disclosure. Sometimes I'll go back and critique myself. Not often, because I usually wait for other people to criticize me and then I listen to see. But this time I went, I'm thinking about the track times in recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it wasn't pushback, but I wanted to go a little deeper than just being able to run X amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yesterday, and we were talking. Was that yesterday?
A couple days ago, but yeah.
It seemed like a weird thing to pick at.
Mm-hmm.
Partly because you just having background information of what else is important. It's gatekeeping. I was very protective of, we just keep talking as though, man, it's about hitting these magical numbers. They just hired Galloway Jr., right? Guy that they just offered the DB. Right, he's a 10-4-2 or 10-4 500 meters. Oh, yep, he can run. See, that's not it. It's part of it. But once they have all these numbers and ranges of motion that go into this data,
sure,
then they read, and then they look at your body type. Then they look at they before you can even really get in the weight room and get busy, they look at your balance and the dynamics of how you're built. and the infrastructure of your body. And then they'll put up measurable benchmarks of like comps. Guys in the league, guys that play a couple years in college, guys that play early. There's all these data points. Then they get into specific movements. Like, it's pretty, in my opinion, for what it is, it's a lot more complicated than if a guy can run a certain time. Now, it's a great jumping off point.
Sure.
But there's a lot of fast guys
that can't play football.
They can't play football.
Yeah. Well,
so I'm a little like internally, I'm a little protective of making it seem that trivial.
So the way it came off when we were originally having the discussion to me was that it seemed like you were saying that it didn't matter to them. And what I think it didn't matter to them the way, or didn't translate. They didn't think it translated the way I thought it translated is kind of where I landed on what you felt about it. What I think, and if I'm understanding you correctly and understanding Campbell correctly, and then Mitch as well, who I thought did a really good job of explaining this.
This guy says about 10 words a day.
Yeah.
He's amazing. That's a guy, if I could fit, and he's a pretty fit guy, I would just sit in his back pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
follow him around all day.
Yep.
So he explained it in a way, and I think this is what you were getting at, was there's all these other things that go into it, but he has to give it into a digestible number for the coaches that means something to them.
Yep.
Right? There's going to be all these scientific numbers and math equations and whatever that means something to him.
Yeah.
And he goes, ooh, I like that. But then he has to go give it to the coaches a number they understand, whether it's broad jump, whether it's 40 time, whether it's 100-meter dash, vertical jump, whatever it is. He has to go give that to them in something that's like, this is a thing you understand. It comes from a thing I understand that it's not worth your time to learn because I've got multiple masters and I'm working on a PhD, right? Like, you don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Let me do this, and then I will spit out. It's like, I mean.
Well, remember when I was talking about watching, I won't get into the receiver that was hurt, but, a guy goes down right in front of me at practice, and they're using real-time data.
Yes.
They're reading catapults, they're talking on a walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
Somebody's probably looking at his readings.
The catapult data
real time.
Yeah.
Versus what it was like to start practice versus, and he's saying, hey, I'm working on this, this, and this, right upper this, blah, 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 blah. And I remember, the only reason I remember this conversation is because some ding dong, it was probably TK or somebody was like, you're just now hearing about catapults. And I'm like, no, numbnuts. That's not the point. Like,
I'd never heard of it being used in real time like that before,
which was what I was going to get into.
Yeah.
I understand catapults quite well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Clemson or whomever else was using them in 19 and 20. But the way that they use data, are you hydrated? What were your readings before? What was your level of vulnerability? Where did we put your reps at this day, this morning? Or were you on high alert? Are you in red? Are you in yellow? Are you a guy whose reps we should have backed down because we kind of saw this coming with this? Like, when I'm talking about reading those things real time, I mean real time.
Well, and there's also
and I think for me, just watching it, I'm like, this is absolutely incredible. They have 151 or 140 guys out here, right? Like, just to be on top of it, it just felt like this well-oiled, well-thought-out, intentional. How do we stay on top of this soft tissue? It's like lifting. If you have an imbalance between the right and the left leg, and they think, okay, here's some wear and tear here, here's the structure. This is why his gates don't open up. This is where his hips are locked. You know what? He may be a little more susceptible to a potential ACL. So before we get there with this, let's work on this.
Yeah, let's correct it.
That's the thing. Those are the things that I'm talking about.
Well, and it goes to get back to Mitch on what he was talking about yesterday, and the conversation we had before.
We might have that queued up.
Was it wasn't the fact that they didn't see value in a 10-6 translating to football. It's that there were a bunch of things below the 10-6 in terms of the calculations, the measurements, the readings that they've done at that point to understand, if a guy runs 10-6 and does X, Y, and Z, there's a good chance that we're going to be able to get this output out of him, right? And so that's the part I think that
Shane, play clip 6 from Mitch. Go ahead.
no, that's fair.
I mean, you hear about it all the time in the MLB. Somebody goes somewhere, pitching coach wants them to change their throwing motion a little bit. They go from a 3.1 ERA from the previous season, and now all of a sudden for the first 50 games they have a 5.4, right? So like a lot of that stuff, like our coaches are great at what they're doing, and as much as I can support them, I will. But in terms of like diving into actual mechanics of the sport, then I'm gonna try to stay away from that as much as I can, unless I am an expert in it.
So using applicable data, and Shane, follow that up with clip 3.
There's a whole different aspect of like game speed as well, right? Game speed, if I ask a track guy who runs 10-9, 11 flat to go out there and run a 40, he's going to be a little bit slower just because he has the track spikes. The surface is a little bit softer, so he's not going to run as fast, right? But he's still going to be one of the faster guys on the team. Now, sometimes what might end up happening is whenever you get into the game, they have to process so much information. So there's a huge difference between the 40-yard speed. So like I look at that as like, what am I capable of, right? So I'm capable of a 4.27, right? But whenever I get into the game, am I able to utilize that by processing all the information that's coming at me and being able to turn it off, turn it on whenever I need to, change directions, take the right angle away from people. So like track speed gives you that capability, right? But then it turns into the game speed aspect of where, like, how can I process all the information that's coming at me?
It sounds like he's talking about Gifford right there.
That's a good example.
That's who I thought of.
Like unlocking it, because we have heard Coop reference that specifically.
Yeah,
like unlocking the processing,
unlocking the measurables,
and year 2 in this defense.
Yeah,
to allow Gift to be the freaky kind of tester that he is.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to Jim Hendry. He's the
I can't wait for this one.
Creighton baseball coach. He has spent a lifetime in Major League Baseball as well. That's coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We are joined now by Jim Hendry. He's the former baseball coach at Creighton. He's spent a lifetime in Major League Baseball as well. Coach, we appreciate you joining us. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Glad to be on with you guys.
Hey, Coach, really appreciate your time. I know Tim and those guys run you ragged, and a lot of people want your attention when you come back to Omaha. So we really appreciate your time.
No, anytime. In fact, I actually moved back here, for like half a year at least the last few years. So I'm in Omaha a lot more than I used to be, and glad to be back. So anything I can do to help the community or what Tim's got going on, certainly glad to be assistance.
Well, there's a couple big things going on this week. Obviously, we got the College World Series, but before we get to that, I want to make sure we get to this golf tournament, the Stella Olson Foundation golf tournament that's happening at Willow Lakes Golf Course in Bellevue. Can you just tell us about that? Why is it important to you? And why is that something that's been such a big thing?
Well, it's a great thing, and obviously that back in my era, that Bill Olson was the legendary high school coach in the state of Nebraska, and we were very, very good friends. And Greg and I have had a long time relationship too. The great career he had, but also knowing him in his post playing times, scouting, and obviously he had a long. This is going back to the early '80s with Bill, '83, '84 when I got here. And John Stella was always back then a great human being. Gave his life to helping kids. Coached a lot of teams that had no chance to compete with the rest of the world. Where he was at, but just did everything for the kids. So when I found out John was in bad health, and Tim had called me, and right when he passed, he wanted to get this going, and Bill has not been in good health now either the last few years. So obviously glad to help and rekindle some relationships from way back. And I think that Tim is now carrying the torch in this town for helping youth baseball. He's got a lot of other things going for coming up that kids can't afford to play travel ball and things like that, which I think is admirable, because we've lost so many athletic young kids that never even get to play baseball anymore because it costs money to play. It costs a lot of money to play growing up, and that's what our youth baseball has kind of become. So I think good things are ahead in Omaha for kids that would want to play or get into baseball and just haven't been able to afford to. Tim's done a tremendous job getting this going here in the last 3 or 4 months.
Talking with the great Jim Hendry, longtime baseball mind, about the Stella Olson Foundation golf tournament that's going to be held out in Bellevue at Willow Lakes today. Coach, you're hitting on a couple of sweet spots for me. I chose Omaha Northwest to go play baseball. One of the only one of 5 siblings that didn't go to Omaha Central because of Coach Olson. Because of Coach Olson, played against a lot of Coach Stella teams. Very in tune with what's going on with ballparks and trying to grow the game of baseball for young kids, because the state as a whole at the high school level plays at a really, really high level. That number could be even bigger. How much just you simply love the game versus you're wanting the good for the game makes you a really good fit to be kind of a spokesperson and come alongside this endeavor in the city of Omaha?
Well, I do love the game. Loved it all my life, and probably wasn't capable of doing anything else well career-wise. So, I took a different path than most. High school and college coach, and got into pro ball, and obviously I've had some great jobs, and obviously had a lot of help from a lot of people. But it's all I ever wanted to do and to be part of. And as I've gotten older, and I certainly don't have the positions I used to have, I've thought about ways to try to contribute and help the game. And I've been on a mission for a long time, even in pro ball, to make college baseball better and get more scholarships again. We've become kind of the sport that you have to have some money growing up to play. We don't even know all the great athletes that aren't playing anymore. Look at the big leagues. Or when I first became the GM of the Cubs, I think it was.
Oh, I think we might have lost him here. We'll get Coach Hendry back here. I know he hasn't been a coach for a long time, but I feel like I still need to call him coach.
I call him coach.
You got to. I mean, right?
Yeah, well, we'll
I
see.
do think it's cool also, and Shane will get Coach Hendry back here in a second. But one of the things I think is cool is, so he didn't actually spend that much time in Omaha before, and the fact that he chooses to still live here half the year and invest in the community the way he does is super cool. Like out of his career, right?
Wonder if he saw Brown Park before the renovations, right?
Which one's Brown Park?
So it's at the bottom of the hill off of 13th. We used to play there all the time.
Yeah,
It's amazing now, right? And wait, we may have him back because we're so up against the clock. I don't want to steal any of his thunder. Shane is yapping. So, hey, Coach, we have Coach back.
All right, as we get Coach Jim Hendry back here. Coach, you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Coach, we
shut me off after
no way. We lost you after when you first started with the Cubs, what the game looked like for you aesthetically.
Well, but like I said, back then, I think it was 19% African Americans playing in the big leagues. Now it's probably down to 6 or 7%. And over time, with the lack of scholarships and the travel ball, it's become a sport where you have to have money to play, and so many great athletes drop off along the way. It's not just a loss of African American kids; it's a loss of many other poor kids that maybe divorced families and can't afford to play travel ball. And then the scholarship situation has been terrible for years. You could be Aaron Nola played for Paul Maneri at Notre Dame, one of the better pitchers in the big league. I think Aaron had 45%. I mean, that's just the way this game's evolved over the last 30 years. So the thing that Tim Lukowski's trying to do, and what all of us want to do all over the country, is provide avenues of kids to play baseball without having to pay exorbitant travel team costs to start with, and hopefully the NCAA will add additional scholarships sooner or later that was well needed the last 25, 30 years.
Coach, in your mind, what is the fix? Because it does really have to start at the community level in order to filter up through high school, college, and then the major leagues. I know for a long time, Major League Baseball had the RBI program where they were trying to get baseball going in inner cities again. Like, what can be done, even if it's not at a kind of institutional level, but if it's just about people here in Omaha who care about the sport that would love to see more kids have the opportunity to play.
Right. Well, that's what it takes, and I applaud like Dayton Moore, the ex-GM of the Royals. He helped start a lot of things in Kansas City now that it's taken off for kids that couldn't afford to play normally. Complexes are built down there for kids to play. They have a great inner city program. And you mentioned the RBI program, and I think Tim will have some announcements on that coming out. He and I have done some work together here the last couple of weeks in the commissioner's office. So hopefully we can get some support and some help from MLB to do the same thing here in town that Dayton got started in Kansas City. So I think good things are coming. You're so right. Omaha and the state of Nebraska plays very, very good high school baseball for, the weather conditions that they have, and, some of the trials and tribulations that other states don't have. But it's certainly to continue and to grow, it has to start at a better situation.
If you're looking,
level.
Coach, real quick, let me get this out before we transition to the CWS. If you're looking for more information, go to www.stellaolsonfoundation.org, or you can call 402-740-3966. You folks know that this is very near and dear to my heart. Love the sport of baseball, just a smidge more than I do football, even though I get the association with the other sport. Love my community, love the sport. Coach, let me ask you, level of surprise. We talked to Brian O'Connor, Coach O'Connor, Tuesday morning, singing the praises of John. Just a couple hours later, the aforementioned Coach Minari hires John to join him at South Carolina. Proud Papa, clue me in later. You saw it coming.
Really proud father. I've tried to stay out of his hair. All he ever wanted to do growing up, he was, a decent high school player and a Division II pitcher, but his whole life he always wanted to be a college coach. To have the opportunity to spend the last 3 years out of the gate, he's 26 years old now. He spent the last 3 years with Brian O'Connor, and who I consider the best coach in college baseball.
He sung your praises Tuesday. It was unbelievable how he said you changed his life. It was pretty cool.
Well, that's really, he had a part in changing mine too. He was our closer on the World Series team, and just like you'd expect, he pitched in the biggest games in the country. Well, with pretty much average stuff. So you can fill in the blanks of how we got it done, and how he's involved. Second to none for me. He's a way better coach than Jim Hendry was. I can promise you that. So my kid got to spend the last 3 years with him, and then Paul Minari is probably my best friend in the game the last 40 years. His father got me started before I came to Creighton. And Paul actually was my high school assistant for 2 or 3 years before I came to Creighton at Columbus High School in Miami. So we have a lifetime friendship. It's a tremendous break for my son. I'm sure Brian would tell you that he's ready for it. I don't want to be the proud father telling you how good he's going to be, but I'm really happy for him. And to Mike, like I said, the two of the greatest coaches ever. At 26 years old, my son is getting the opportunity to work and getting broken in by two of the best.
Coach, we really appreciate your time here. I also really appreciate how you can't turn off the scout brain. You're singing the praises of Brian O'Connor, and you're like, average stuff, though.
Well, he tell you the same. It's meant to be a cop. I mean, he wasn't going in the first round like Sahoviak or Dan Smith did or Alan Bennis, but trust me, when he went out there with a lead in the 8th or 9th inning, the game was usually over and Creighton was going to win.
When you go through the Hintons of the bunch, that was some crew in the MVC, Coach. Yeah. I'll see you this afternoon. Looking forward to it.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
That's former Creighton coach Jim Hendry, baseball lifer. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. That was the voice of Mitch Cholowinski. He is maybe the smartest guy on staff.
Yeah.
Is that fair? He's in the neighborhood.
Again, I love. First of all, love the interview with Coach Hendry. Should be a pretty fun golf event out at Willow Lakes at Bellevue. I'm out there. I'm probably
I keep wanting to say Willow Creek. Is that the church?
It's
Is that
Willow
the
Wakes.
mega
Yeah,
church
yeah,
in
yeah.
Chicago?
yeah.
Okay, that's why I'm having the
A
thing
couple
here.
people have gotten in trouble there, but we'll move on from that.
Listen,
But sometimes that happens in mega churches. It's a lot of people to manage.
happens in a lot of places.
Out in Bellevue, fantastic course, and they've got a follow-up dinner that starts at 5:30.
Over at Casio's.
Of course, it's got to be at Casio's, the old school steakhouse. Alfie and those guys. That was where my dad took me when we were ever going to have the
fancy dinner.
The fancy dinner.
Yep.
So they've been super gracious.
You don't want to know.
They're going to celebrate Tony Payne.
Nice. Yeah.
Long. I mean, 300 wins.
Yeah.
300 wins, Tony Payne.
Yeah.
So that event will start at 5:30 with the dinner at 6:30. And I mean, it is star-studded. You're going to have a chance to win auction items, and just visit the www.stellaolsonfoundation.org. Just
everything you need to know.
Even our main man Mike Sauter's got a foursome.
What?
Listen, you know who he's playing with? Oklahoma Tyler.
Oof.
Who loves to swing it.
Yeah, does he?
Yeah. Well, I was looking for him at Caleb's graduation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sounds about
And
right.
apparently he was golfing with my other buddy,
Who?
Matt Milliken.
I don't know Milliken.
Yeah, great. Platteview.
Connor?
Milliken. Yep.
His dad?
Yep.
Okay. Connor
Yeah.
good ball. Yeah.
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 Well,
No, I know Connor.
But
I don't know Connor, but
of course Stacy and Connor came the 1 and 1A of the bunch because I'm a big Tanner fan too. I don't know about Matt. Matt's in the doghouse now. Matt's who made the bacon bomb.
Oh.
With the meatloaf and the bacon wrap that I
Yeah.
wiped the sauce off and ate it anyway at Oklahoma Tyler's house on the back deck.
Yeah. So Oklahoma Tyler.
So okay, I've wiped down other kinds of meat too.
Not helping
It's
your
weird.
case.
Jerks.
Jerks. Oklahoma Tyler. I'm not great at golf, but I am a fun hang if you ever want to like go out. So
Listen, you know one thing you guys share the same viewpoint on?
being petty.
Well, that. So yeah, that's a 13 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
He is extremely petty.
I feel like that's why part of the reason I resonate with him is just like we're just standing on business.
You guys could go and crush a bunch of zip lines, some IPAs over local college recruiting.
Oh yeah.
You shared the same sentiment for a particular school's recruiting style when it comes
Like
to
if you're in the Summit League,
Stop
it may not be that. It may not be that fun to get your ass kicked by kids from your own town every year.
Would you stop?
It seems like it wouldn't be that. I wouldn't enjoy it.
And it's going to happen again with Bryson Ball going to SDSU.
Yeah.
I actually felt like I'm going to say this, and I don't want to steal your thunder because we're going to get into Nebraska. I actually think and I have a couple scholarships, and coming out of high school, he's better than a couple of guys that I think Lincoln took
You were taking
a flyer on. I would have.
Oh, so you're in Sam McEwen's lane over here.
No, Ball. I would take a good hard look at Ball going to
take a flyer.
Nebraska.
Now listen, SDSU might be a better fit for him.
Maybe. So
make it his decision.
So I'm with yes.
That's all I'm asking.
So I kind of aired with Jacob Padilla back, like behind the scenes, how the sausage is made in our conversation that we were having. Like I was Team JP on that discussion because he wasn't anti-you and Sam. He's just like was not that linear.
No, I get that, and I brought that up.
And so
I brought it up with Doug.
So, but Ball's fantastic. He's and he doesn't need a babysitter.
Yeah.
You know, I obviously, like they're going to look at change of direction and ball handling. But when you're talking about shooting and being skilled, he's really, really good. Some elite level defensive guard kind of get underneath him, and really kind of force him away. But he's got time to work on those things.
Yeah, he can get stronger.
Yeah.
He can get better with the ball.
Yeah, but as far as shooting, he's definitely that guy. And then they turned around. Speaking of Summit League guys, a freshman of the year, then Nebraska gets one in the portal in baseball with Cale Frost, and I'm like, baseball can do it. Can basketball do it?
Oh, baseball's different, DB.
Well, he's going to help him too as a middle
Baseball's
infielder.
different.
Yeah. I think Coach Bolt was watching Schwellenbach and the Orioles when he got that call.
Nice.
Yeah, that Frost is coming. So good pickup out of the portal for Nebraska baseball.
Is Creighton going to get anybody out of the portal? Or
I am very, very interested because you know what's funny?
That they don't currently have a baseball team?
A lot of people kind of threw out John Hendry
as a possible
after the 2025 season.
Here's the problem, though. Who's signing up to do it the way that Creighton's laid it out?
I listen. They're internally
This was not
blossoming.
handled
Some guys they have some work to do with how they want to present this baseball program going forward for this job opening.
was not handled well.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you, champ.
Your head coach was on staff already. Now he works for Minnesota.
Hey,
That's the truth.
so which do you think I'm happier about? Latif saying yes to Nebraska after I prematurely said that he was in, or Gandasi being in Minnesota when I told Sindelar he was out? They're like, wait.
I mean,
Alex was like, well, you can read the tea leaves, but technically
he
he's
tried
still
to,
here.
He tried to save you. Too.
I don't do that. I know he
He
did.
tried to bail you out hard.
I mean, hey, can't get this kind of professionalism anywhere.
I mean, you got 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. I don't know.
Thank you, A-Train. Appreciate
Yeah, I
that.
just feel like maybe you should have just had the guy who was already on staff just be your head coach. That makes a lot of sense to me.
And going back to our previous conversation as we listen
Yeah, not to get totally derailed.
to some strength and conditioning stuff, I didn't know if it was TK that got on me about the catapults.
Oh, it was.
But it was TK.
Yeah, because he popped up in the comments.
Dude, this is how I told you he has the number now, so he has direct access.
Yeah.
This is what my man hit me with.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't chastise you for the catapult. I'm reading it in how I think he would talk to me, even though he's very good natured on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Like when he calls.
Yeah.
This, I could hear the
He's been pretty good natured. I mean, I've never really had a bad natured interaction with him.
This is the condescending TK right here. I didn't chastise you for the catapults. I was merely educating the masses. Numbnuts.
Well, you know,
You're the numbnuts.
It's the numbnuts at the end. Just the
No,
toss.
how would you say P.S. H.
Mom, get my nuts.
Like, man, DB, come on. Just to watch it work real time, man, was fascinating.
No, the real time part of it is interesting and different than how I'd seen other people use it. And that's not to say nobody else uses it that way. But it's super big in European soccer. Everybody uses those things over there just to manage.
You listen to him talk, it seems fairly well thought out, right?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anything happens on accident, which is nice because it seems in previous regimes that it was kind of just, hey, whatever happens, happens. Just kind of loosey-goosey doing whatever here.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of that goes on. And I think Sam was talking about this on Monday with us. He was talking about kind of and you talk about the rigor all the time of what is required of these guys. And he talked about like, hey, like if you're going to make them work this hard, you got to get some wins at some point, right? And I've been thinking about that for like 3 days.
No.
Yeah.
As it comes back up on a Thursday.
Because I don't think that's obviously you got to win at some point. That's just how it works, right?
Yep.
I don't think that's a direct result of the hard work part, though, in terms of you have to work hard or you have to get wins in order to justify working hard.
Unfortunately, I agree with you.
Because there's so many other benefits that people will see, whether it's getting drafted, whether it's seeing themselves just improve, whether it's the fact that they just know, not to get philosophical here because we never do that, but to just know that, oh, I'm capable of more than I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a lot about Tony Vitello and changing his definitions of success for his team. Like, yes, wins and losses are a measure of success, but if you can't, and this is where I got in trouble growing up, is if you can't separate the value of the hard work from the result you're trying to achieve, then you'll start to think working hard isn't worth it.
Yeah, and so
you have to separate it.
It's so funny, the practical application of this, what you're just saying.
Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna try not to use this as an example a ton because he's my own.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Hendry reminded me, I know Father's Day is coming up. I personally don't love the holiday, but anyway, he's talking about John and that relationship, right? And so I'm thinking about it with Caleb, and on the rare opportunities that I do talk to him, he's like, hey, this is where I am. This is what I'm doing. This is how I feel. I'm back returning punts, like whatever he's saying, right? And I'm listening to the workouts and I'm watching him grow. And he said, the cool thing about this is, and we're not even talking about playing time. Do I have a kind of an indication of how they feel? Yeah. But we're not even talking about playing time.
Mhm.
I'm just talking about his growth because he talks with this joy, right? Like he's just in a good mental spot.
Mhm.
And he's working the summer camps and stuff. And what have I always said about it? Most people think, I won't say most, a lot of people thought he was a better player than I did personally.
Mhm.
Right? I was very
Especially early.
right. I knew he had some special attributes.
But you weren't totally sure yet.
I just was still a little bitter that he wouldn't be all in and train.
Yeah, you wanted him to choose something and go with it.
Yeah, I wanted him to train. But
you were wrong. Don't do that.
I was wrong. I was 100% wrong. No, there's no question.
Yeah.
So as this thing went on, I go, you guys got to understand something. Like, he hasn't trained sport specific yet. He's a blank slate. With his with his other attributes, he's got a chance to be really, really good.
Yeah, what you're seeing from him now is just the start. It's the glimpse.
So listening to him talk, he's like, "Yep, I'm finally learning how to run, and get to 90 in full extension. I'm better with my balance." He said, "I just feel better." He said, "The fun part. The fun part of it is." While I'm still working all these other techniques, right? Catching punts or, they're retraining, they play a lot of catch technique, which means they're not backpedaling. They're, if you Google this, just Google catch technique. So he's like, we're in the suites or the hallways or whatever, I'm working on my catch technique. They're making it seem like that's just the process is part of it. We're not even talking about anything goal-oriented at the end in terms of wins and losses.
No idea if he's going to play this year.
None.
He has no idea if his play is going to lead to wins and losses. He has no idea if his process is going to lead to wins and losses. He doesn't know any of that right now.
100%. I'm just listening to him be in love with the process. And this is the first time, and this is really the crux of the discussion. This is the first time that the university has said out loud what I wanted them to say out loud for 15 years, 20 almost. We are a developmental program. When he said that, I was like, I think I'm in love. Right? Do you remember that?
He said that early.
He said it early.
It might have been in his opening presser.
And I'm like, okay. You have my attention.
Yeah.
You officially have, because that's how it has to be. I already wanted a grimy grinder. I already wanted a guy with that it wasn't the best job. Got that.
Not that he had available.
Got that.
Not that he's had. This
isn't his best job.
Yeah, because he's worked in the NFL.
And so the multiple check marks were being hit, but then to hear somebody say that who never. I can say this and he wouldn't be mad at me. He's never had a great capacity to go out and work until this last year.
Caleb?
Yeah, until this last year. Never was, you know what I mean? He would do what he was told. Now, the downside of that is sometimes you got to go do more, even though your level of accomplishments appear like you're doing enough.
Well,
so there's that fine line, right?
What's the thing that Roy Williams said? I know you're not a huge Roy Williams guy. What's he say in the Jordan documentary, right? Jordan's there as a freshman. He goes, "Hey, I want to be the best player to ever come out of North Carolina." He's like, "Okay, you're going to have to work harder than that." Jordan goes, "I'm working as hard as everybody else." And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to be the best player that ever played."
Anthony Edwards. Yeah. I thought I was working pretty hard. Golden State was like, "You're not working hard enough." Yeah. Not if you want to be the best.
Yeah.
So
working as hard as everybody else.
I did watch the last year, right? And it helps, right? He's super close to DJ, and he got to utilize the building, and the twins like to train, and so they got to do extra stuff. Then you start to see gains, and you just like it. I mean, Teddy's grown. It's
addicting.
But you need other people around you
at least
sometimes,
to start.
right?
A lot of the time to start.
To be goal oriented. That's why I always tell people to stay away from dream killers. But I say all that to say, when the process becomes that important, see, the results kind of become secondary, because it feels like And I don't mean results in your gains. I mean the wins and losses.
Just any results, though. I mean,
Because we go back to what we talked about with the competition and continually to recruit young guys. I was using the defensive backs. I'm like, at some point when the magic happens, you go from, man, who are they bringing in now? Or who? Gosh, another DB. Shoot, Galloway Jr. just got another offer in 2025. It would be easy if you're not dialed in and enjoy the process.
Not wired that way.
You are like, man, why they keep bringing in all these corners, right? How do you think Amari Sanders feels? You got 5 offers in 3 days to 25 corners, right? Sanders got a chance to be pretty good. I don't typically say that out loud about people. There are people that I leave out. There are people that I talk about. Sanders got a chance to be pretty good. He has to be built a certain way where it's about the process. It can't, because, and I said, I don't know when this is, but at some point when the magic happens for cultural turnover, you can cheer for other people. And I said yesterday, I think it was in Betting Bites or whatever. It was
in Betting Bites.
Yeah, where I was like, at some point, you got to be able to say to yourself, this isn't at my expense. It's this young fella gets to be a part of something great because this is what we get to do here. Right? If you're going to go put your arms around Brian Knuckles or C. Childs, or I didn't really put my arms around D'Angelo, but I tried. Amon, whomever.
Yeah.
I know this is, ooh, man, I'm going to have to compete against you. But I do want the best for you because I think this is pretty cool. Like I do. You cannot, if you want to win, you cannot be afraid of competition. And so once you get to, this is beyond competition, they get to be a part of what I'm doing, man, I'm telling you, you can pretty much accomplish anything. I don't care if it's Hurrdat Media.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's Mutual of Omaha. When you get over that part and embrace that's why I love the fact Coach Rule almost never talks about himself real time. It's either the University of Nebraska or the state of Nebraska.
Yeah.
Because
staff. He talks about staff.
It has to be something bigger than you. It doesn't matter if you're the player, support staff, on the field staff, in the athletic department. When it's bigger than you and you enjoy the process, that's when you can really get things done.
Well, and there's, I brought this up earlier this week, right? Because I don't have the high level athletic experience to draw on that some people do, but I did care a lot about certain things in my life that were very difficult to accomplish. And like I told this, I think I said this earlier this week. I don't remember if it was on or off air. It took me 6 years, almost exactly 6 years, to go from a 385 bench to a 400 bench. I wanted to bench 400 my whole life. That's but it took me 6 years. I got to 385. I thought I was going to have it a month after that, right? It took me 6 more years. You know why I didn't give up? Because I love lifting weights.
Yeah,
I loved it. Right?
It was just cool to hear him say that because he's so he's so task oriented. Like, if I do this, that means I can get this. We didn't even talk about the get part at the end.
Yeah.
This is the first time in 18 years.
Yeah.
It was, I want to get better at this. He said this, I almost had to hang up the phone. I got a little mushy and I told him, I said, I texted him. No, I just texted him, good morning. I don't call. I said, I'm not talking to you anymore because I'm going to get in my feels. And I don't like to get emotional, especially around this time of the year. But he said, if I could go back and write because he does the player, what's the word where the NBA, they write to themselves? And it was like the Players Tribune.
Yeah, Players Tribune deal. Yeah.
He goes, if I could write a letter to my former self. Now, what do you think my emotion was when he said this? He goes, I would, these are the words he used. You can tell he's been around Nebraska staff. He said, I would be in elite level shape and I would do what I'm told. I was like, okay.
I got to go.
I got to go. I got to go. Like, that's probably how it sounded to him. Because he sent a heart emoji later, and I could get emotional talking about it, right? Because that's really all that's
what you wanted for him.
It's all I don't care if it's Tate Jenkins. I don't care if it's Braylon Warren. I don't care if it's Calvin Strong. I don't care if it's Jordan Strong. I don't care if it's Jimmy Forsyth at Burke when I was coaching there. I don't care if you're a coworker.
Mm-hmm.
If you make the decision to be around people that you want to take instruction from, just do those two things.
Mm-hmm.
Be in elite level shape and do what you're told. But it's so crucial that you're around people that you're receiving good information from. So take your time in making that decision. I'm not mad about that's why I don't mind the transfer portal. That's why I don't mind transferring in high school, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be right. I want you to get it right. I want you to get it right. I can cheer for Harpster over at Prep. I can cheer for any of those guys that I coached that didn't want to come to Westside. I don't care. That's why I want to see other people at other schools function at a high level.
Because at the end of the day, it's you want people to come to Westside because you believe it's the best.
They're
place
best
for
with
them.
yeah. I'd rather have you with us.
Well, and same thing that Rule wants, right? He said he thinks Nebraska's the best place for you, but if you don't think that, that's okay.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
As long as you make the right decision for you, because what he doesn't want to see is for you to make a bad decision based on, oh man, I had this crazy visit and it was emotional. And
I told you what he told me about Dylan Raiola, right? Real time. Hey, Dylan didn't pick us. He's enjoying his life down at Buford, playing at a high level. He's gonna go to Georgia. I'm gonna wish him the best, and I'm gonna recruit Dayton like hell.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
Yeah,
I almost had to get up and leave. I'm like, pretty good, man.
Yeah,
because you invested a ton in the. What do you say about Trev? Hey, man, you guys like loosen up. You're too. Stop. It's a transactional world in college football. Things happen. Guys got to do what's best for them. Don't be so hung up on your best interest. Think about somebody else. Like, let it go. And
yeah,
I was like,
I'm not going to do that. But
and I was
okay.
like, if you can say that,
yeah,
and that's your boss, and that's part of the reason you came, I certainly can, can't I?
Well, I mean, he knew he was going to hire Troy Dannon.
That's how he thinks.
No, I know. Well, you have to.
So you think that the culture doesn't have a chance to get going when you have somebody that practices what they preach?
Well, that's the thing, is it has to be the reason culture either works or doesn't work is how genuine it is of the people trying to instill it. And if they're genuine, then it'll work. And if they're blowing smoke, you end up with Colorado. That's DB. I'm Ravi. We're going to talk a little Florida baseball coming up next. Welcome back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. Just giving a small Indian name etymology lesson here on during the breaks here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
So you've gone, wait, what was the E word again?
Etymology.
And heliocentric.
Heliocentric. Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you. I used to be smart.
It's pretty impressive vernacular.
So we
haven't caught up with Nick yet.
We're trying to get a hold of Nick Delatorre. He is the senior writer for Gators Online. You want to know a fun little trivia fact about Florida Gators?
Give me a fun fact, Ravi.
They're currently on a 5-game winning streak.
Yes.
When is the last time they won even 3 games in a row?
I'm going to go all the way back to the month of March.
Further.
February.
They had not won as many as 3 games in a row since the end of February.
So I knew I was close. Do you know why? Why was I close?
Because they were bad all
because
year.
I had gone back and tried to track how many weekend series that they had won.
Yep.
And it was a whopping total of 4.
Yep. You want to know the opponents?
Where they won 3 in a row?
They actually won 5 in a row in March at the end of February.
Okay.
But they were a 3-game sweep against Columbia.
Okay.
I don't know if you know this. Not known for their athletic prowess at Columbia.
That's the one with the pretty Tar Heel blue sea.
Yeah, and the lion.
Yeah. That's a cool logo.
It is a cool logo. Very bad athletics.
When I used to do Build a Dynasty,
you'd go Columbia.
I would pick something very, very similar to that. Which, by the way, are you getting into 2025?
Oh, I'm gonna.
Do you have a P5?
No, I need to get something. I don't have a new system, so I have to buy a new system because I'm rocking some old school stuff right now. So
Yeah.
I just haven't had a need to, right? NCAA was like my game though. No, seriously. So
This dude's talking about playing PlayStation 5, so I'm trying to figure out how to pay my mortgage.
my
Lifestyles of the Ravi and famous.
I just don't have kids. That's it.
So what do you want? Do you know the bites and all that type of
No,
stuff?
I have no. I got to.
Are you pumped?
I am super excited. So
The free world is. If Nebraska season tanks, they don't get to their win total. It's totally because of college football.
If you have kids, you're probably gonna have a PS.
Listen.
By the way,
how are those guys even going to class?
if you have kids, by the way, you're probably gonna have a PS5 anyway. So I mean, might as well just buck up, Buttercup.
Oh no, Shane.
No.
You get cracked from one of those.
not trying to. I might go Xbox. I'm more familiar with the Xbox controllers.
Blasphemer.
I grew up playing so. This is why I'm so fond of the game. So my best friend Busky.
Fond?
Yeah, I'm very fond of the game.
Gosh, man, who are you? Why can't you just say you like it?
I don't know because
Why can't you just say love? Why you have to be fond
you know
of
I
it?
love the game so much.
You know I'm so fond of it. Like, that's in your natural lexicon?
Yeah,
Fond?
fond, affinity, all sorts of things. You know,
Oh,
I just-
gosh.
no, that's how me and my best friend became.
Like, I can talk, huh?
I mean, you do it for a living.
Oh, fudge.
That's how me and my best friend became best friends. Is I would go over to his house and play NCAA football,
Mhm.
and then after like months of that, we're like, should we do other stuff? Should we do anything else? And then we're like, no, we're not going to do anything else. And then like there were several more months that passed by, and we're like, yeah, we'll do some stuff. And then that's how I started working out because he had a bench press in his basement.
Well, on to the next thing.
Pretty much.
Well,
I also got pretty decent at darts for a while because of that. Just whatever was going on in his basement, we're hanging out.
That's one thing I was never.
I love darts.
You'd think I would. I don't know. I would think I would be better. Maybe it's just attention to detail, but I knew I was in trouble because Fida or Alvin Mitchell and Oklahoma Tyler,
Mhm.
like they have their own darts, and that's like their thing.
Yeah, if somebody rolls up to a bar and like has a little case, like you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You got to have good eyesight for it, Damon.
Maybe that's it.
That could be
Because
part
I
of it.
thought I had good enough depth, but considering I can't see,
Deft touch, just kind of.
like Tiger Woods pitching around the green.
He's doing all right so far. He's hanging in there.
Yeah, just hanging around.
Minus one so far.
Yeah, he is 1 under through 6. He's tied with Logan McAllister, Yetrup Frederick, Tim Winding, Hergio Garcia. There's a ton of guys at 1 under. Most notably, if you're looking for. Oh, hey Shane, I meant to tell you, Ricky Flatbill already 1 under. How about that? Can Fowler win a major? That'd be outstanding. I'm gonna ask John Rathouz what happened.
I think he asked me that question last year.
You asked me that question last year, Eric.
I think I've asked you for the last 4 years.
That's
That's another guy.
Yeah.
Before we get back to football, because I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
That's one guy that I couldn't stand for a long, long time.
Ricky.
Yep.
Okay.
That now I
You kind of root for him a little bit.
Yep. 'Cause I just listen to him more, and I know you get on me about press conferences. And
Listen,
to,
I don't care. You can do whatever you want. You just spend a lot of time on it.
Why? How come you don't want to know how people think? I had a 30-minute conversation with Mike Sauter yesterday about a particular parent in the metro, and all I said, this is interesting. Like,
I want to know how certain people think.
I
don't want to know how everybody thinks. Like,
and he
there's some
just
people that
kind of let me talk for 5 or 6 minutes, which
Yeah.
is weird for Sauter because he's always chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
I go, do you know what I mean though? And I'm not comparing this to like why I watch Criminal Minds and SVU, like wanting to know like profile.
It's definitely the same thing.
But I
it's okay.
do want to know how something that hasn't been successful for so long, like why you keep doing it. Like why in spite of the results.
Mhm.
Like I just want it to be like, is it the Truman? What was the one where we got to see how the guy like thought along the way? It's not the Truman Show. It was some other.
Stranger Than Fiction.
Maybe that's a lot of words for something that I would give a memory to. Stranger Than Fiction. Was it Stranger Than Fiction?
Was Will Ferrell?
Maybe. Thought process, kind of.
Yeah,
Headspace?
maybe. I don't know.
But anyway,
That's
like
a phenomenal movie if you haven't seen it.
that kind of stuff interests me.
It's not like a normal
Well,
Will Ferrell movie.
maybe.
Stranger Than Fiction is one of my favorite movies. It's incredible.
So can I go back to something we were talking
Yeah.
about the process and why you love Coach Rule?
Mhm.
You said it started because like, why do you care so deeply about something that is just sports?
Mhm.
And it's because of the way that he relates it to life, right? Which is kind of what got your attention with Vitello,
Mhm.
right? So you definitely have a thing there.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about this, I'm just curious to get your thoughts. When you have with the culture the way that it is, and we're clearly for the first time in probably 5 years not traumatized to use the dreaded C word, right? Because we use it all the time now.
Mhm.
Don't we?
Culture.
Yeah. Remember
Yeah.
when we were afraid to use it? It
Yeah.
was like this dirty word, and like we called it the dirty C word, and it was overplayed and kind of like two gapping and some other things.
Yeah, it's because we sucked at it.
Okay. Maybe I don't. Okay.
That's my assumption.
So
People like talking about stuff they're bad at.
and we talk about being in love with the process.
Mhm.
Are you ready to not talk about wins and losses, or are you going to go with the big boy approach and say, yep, this is a critical year to see tangible results for being in love with the process?
There is a point where you have to have tangible results. That is 100%. There's no question. I think if they don't get to a bowl game this year, which is just one more win, I think
We thought that at 5-3.
I know, but it's true. It's still true. It's as true.
I'm gonna stop bringing up old stuff.
It's as true.
Maybe,
and
probably
they
not.
should have won one of those games.
Probably
Like
not.
that's just they should have won one of those games. Full stop. Like you can say that, and like that's okay to say. I'm not going to shy away from wins and losses. You're talking to the only guy in the state that's predicted a playoff appearance for Nebraska.
Yeah, by 2026.
Yeah, like that's not that long from now.
That's incredible.
Like I'll stand on that because
Business.
I believe that what he is doing, and when you do things the right way, it leads to success.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the measures of success is certainly in this business wins and losses. Just like one of the measures of success in our business is your download numbers or whatever, right? Like we can do an incredible show. And at some point, if people don't listen, we are failing on one of the measures of success, right?
Yeah.
That's just how it is. I don't shy away from that. I want the download numbers. I want the ratings. I want whatever comes with it, right? But that doesn't change the fact that I think we do a good show, whatever those numbers end up being. I think it's the same thing with Nebraska football. I think if you do a good show, the chances of your numbers being where you want them to be are way, way higher. And I think if you run a football program the right way, the chances of you not only attaining but sustaining success. Let's not forget that Mike Riley was 7-0, right? Did he do things the way that we think they need to be done? Probably not. But you can have a flash in the pan. In order to have success sustained, this is the way I believe it needs to be done, at least here. And so, yes, I don't shy away from the wins and losses. I said they're going to be 8-4 this year. I fully believe that. Do I think that they are all of a sudden a failure and not on track if that doesn't happen for some reason? No. That's where I can make the distinction.
The ability to compartmentalize.
I mean,
it's a heck of a skill set.
I try.
Is that what we're talking about? I don't even recognize what we're talking about.
Well, next we're going to be talking with Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider here on Hurrdat
Talk
Sports
schedules.
Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We are joined now by the one and only Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. B, what's going on, man?
Good morning, gentlemen. How we doing?
I'm good. That depends. How has Luca and his act treated you, Brian? Are you ready to kick him to the curb? It's not just
pretty
his
much.
So what,
pretty much.
Outside of ATS, you think he could ever have a style that that we could gravitate towards as maybe not the face of the NBA, but as like one of a top 5 player in the league in a lot of regards? Like, but we just don't really embrace Luka, do we?
I mean, some nights I love him, but his whining to the officials is just so lame. And last night, did I read last night the only games he's ever fouled out of were in overtime?
3.
Like that's the first time.
The
First time in regulation ever.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a problem with Paul?
Nah. I mean, it was close, but I don't
Pretty
know.
much.
What did you think? I didn't really.
Once it went to review, I was like, oh, they'll overturn that because I thought he did establish position, but it was pretty bang bang. He gets
Yeah,
away
it
with a
could
lot
have
too,
gone
so I
either
wasn't
way.
gonna cry over that 50-50
Yeah.
call. I didn't like it though, but I'm always afraid to have the conversation of when you need to keep superstars in the game. Isn't that kind of dicey?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think you can blame Kid there. I think he's got to be in there with what it
4
was
minutes.
4 minutes and change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you
think
meant when you're a ref trying to keep superstars in the game.
I was.
So yeah, it's like
Oh,
because
my fault. I thought you were talking about. Okay, my bad. I thought
coaching
you were talking about
decisions. Yeah,
the
yeah.
foul trouble.
Are you okay with having that discussion? Like how to officiate a game for to keep superstars in the game?
I mean, you got to call the game, right?
That's kind of where I want to land the plane.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
If Luka didn't just berate officials all the time, he would never foul out.
Right.
I promise.
How about when he lost the ball
Right.
out of bounds and Drew Holiday probably fouled him?
Yeah.
But he just can't let it go.
Officials are humans. Like I'm
Right.
not saying I'm doing it on purpose, but if you're like I had the same problem with Bo Pelini back in the day. If you're just standing there screaming in a guy's ear for 3 hours, subconsciously,
Right.
he's not gonna want to help you out at all. Like that's just how it is.
Not at all. Sure.
He's not like
That's
if there's
just
a
human
bang bang
nature.
play. Yeah, if there's a bang bang play, he's not gonna be like, yeah, like it's just subconsciously it's gonna go the other way because you've been screaming at him for 3 hours, and in this case, you've been screaming at him for 3 games. If you're Luka, like, knock it off.
Right. Right. I mean, his whining with the official. I mean, it's like everybody in the NBA does that, though.
Yeah, LeBron certainly gets away with it.
Yeah, LeBron's
I don't like him either, so that's neither here nor there. That might be a bad example.
LeBron's isn't constant like this though. Like, yes, he complains and he'll kind of make faces and stuff, but Luka's is the entire game.
Yeah.
Right.
Like whether it's in the playoffs, whether it's in the regular
first quarter.
Yeah, it is. Like LeBron will get after you a little bit, but he kind of picks his moments. Luka is literally every call.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Yeah. So I don't know I don't have no idea what to do with the side in Game 4, but shame on me. Better late than never, though. Give me the under. The first three, 205, 203, 196, and we're still in the two teens. Let's see. Where are we? What happened? Okay, here we go. 211.5. Just give me the under. I have no clue on the side for Game 4, but give me the under.
Were you surprised that they opened as the slight fave?
A little bit. Yeah.
At no point have they looked like the better team. You got to be counting on Boston to lose focus because Dallas can't get a stop. I can't see Dallas getting a stop when they need one ever.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And, finally they got their fringe player. I mean, at least Lively, who had made all 16 field goal attempts against Minnesota, but was non-existent at Boston. He finally had a good game. He had a double-double last night, and just not enough. Not enough. That third quarter was just devastating to them.
I want to get into some win totals because we're talking about putting success and what success looks like. We just talked about this all over the place, and I want to put some practical application to it. So I want to start with a couple teams on Nebraska's schedule in terms of win totals to help us get there. Let's take a look at the Colorado Buffaloes. Let's start with them first, which most people look at is Nebraska's first must win.
Yeah. So total of 5.5 over minus 138 under plus 112. They're -8 in week 1 at home to a very good FCS team in North Dakota State. I think they'll take care of that. They are plus 6.5 at Nebraska. I'm going to give that one to the Cornhuskers. And, if Jeff Sims doesn't fumble the ball all over the place, who knows where that game would have gone last year. Colorado -8 at CSU. Not a layup, but I'll give them a W. I'm going to give them a W at home to Baylor. A loss at UCF. I think Avery Johnson will run all over them when K-State comes to Boulder. At Zona, I mark that as a swing game. They had a 3-point game last year. I think they beat Cincy at home. At Texas Tech, I got to give them an L there. They're +8 at home to Utah. I got to give them an L there. Excuse me. At Kansas, that'll at Kansas, that'll be a shootout. That's a tough one. I marked that one as a swing game, but I probably lean to KU there. And Oklahoma State at home. I mean, I think Ollie Gordon will run all over them.
Is he the best? Is he the best player in college football?
He's one of them.
If he wasn't a running back, they're going to be okay. Oklahoma State's going to be okay.
No doubt. I mean, they're always going to be okay with Gundy, in my opinion. So, what did that? So that has them. Let's see. 03, 04, 14, 15, 16, 26, 37.
I think I counted 4 with 2 swings.
4, yeah. 4 and 7. So I don't think they're gonna. Well, they'd have to win at Arizona.
Yeah.
And who knows? That roster was decimated after Fish left.
You'd have to win. They'd have to win at Arizona and against Kansas, I think, to get over 5.5.
How is Utah only +8 right now?
Utah's going to beat the brakes.
I think Utah's got a really good shot.
Rising's back, and that team's in.
They're going to be good.
If they had Cam Rising last year, they might have been in the playoff. That team is really good.
They had no quarterback play at all last year.
And they still how many games did they win last year? They were still good last year.
Yeah.
And they couldn't. I mean, their quarterback.
Oh yeah.
You want to talk about bad quarterback play?
They were four string guys.
Yeah, they were on they started a 3rd string guy to start the season. Utah with Cam Rising back is going to be incredible.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their losses last year. They only scored 6 to Oregon. They only scored 7 against Oregon State. Only scored 7 against Northwestern. I mean, their defense will be really good as usual. I mean, they got 7 starters back on defense, and now you get Rising. Yeah, Utah's gonna be tough.
They're gonna beat the brakes off of Colorado.
That's a good football.
I'm hammering the Colorado under. Not that anybody asked me.
It's because of his affinity for Deion Sanders.
Yeah, I think he's a really good dude. I'm a Florida State guy too, B. So if I dislike this dude, it is serious.
Every Knoll hates Deion these days.
Yeah, because he's trash.
Deion's a tough hang, isn't he?
I mean, he acts like a child, so that makes sense. So I want to go to a team where I'm actually hammering the over, and that is the Iowa Hawkeyes at 7.5 wins. I don't know how they don't get to 10 this year. I'm looking at their schedule. It sets up pretty well for them. What do you think, B?
Man, I'm sorry. I prepared for those first 3. I know you gave me a heads up on Iowa, but I
know I threw that at you. I apologize.
No. Let's save Iowa for next week if you don't mind, just because I didn't really prepare.
All right, let's go to USC. USC.
Okay, man. I mean, their defense. I mean, so I looked at what they did in the portal. They got 17 transfers, but only 5 or 4-star guys. I mean, there's no enormous influx of talent defensively. I just think they're going to be awful defensively again. Look, LSU has lost 4 season openers in a row, but I think they're finally going to get off the schneid in a season opener. I might be at that game. I'm going to be in Vegas that weekend. So I think USC loses that one. Beats Utah State. I think they lose at Michigan, where they're a 10.5-point underdog. They're a 4.5-point favorite at DraftKings at home to Wisconsin. I think they probably get that one. They've got to go. They got to fly east 3 times in 5 weeks. So they're probably better than Minnesota and Maryland, but they're going to lose one of those. They're +4 at home to Penn State. I don't know. They beat Rutgers at home. At Washington, not a layup. I'm going to give them Nebraska at home. They're -4.5 at UCLA. They'll win that. I don't know. I don't think they're going to beat Notre Dame at home. So the win total is 7.5, and I think they're going to go 7-5. So I lean to the under on that one. And look, I mean, the Miller Moss looked great in the bowl game, but it was a 1-game sample size. We'll see.
You know who else looked great for 1 game? Matt Castle.
Hey, he's on a roll this morning, B.
We appreciate your time as always. We will catch up with you again next week.
Hey, that was a fun hang, guys. We'll see you.
Thanks, B.
Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. You can also catch him at Major Wager. B, we'll talk to you later. We've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DBM Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by the one and only Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Bruntsy, what's going on, man?
Not much. How you guys doing?
Well, hello, MB. How are things?
Not bad. I'm curious to know your thoughts, Damon. You're a veteran of the drop-off line. Does it gets worse in the summer, right? Like summer camp drop-off line. It's like a special circle of hell.
So the thing that's funny you asked, right? So the thing that makes summer people, they already don't follow pickup and drop-off rules. And summer, it's like times 10 because a lot of times it's parents, no disrespect to any parents that just want some of their alone time. They can't wait to get those kids there and they don't even have anything to do. So, so like the sense of urgency to not follow just simple driving rules is heightened.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy?
And then you mix in the people that have to have grandparents do pickup and drop off.
Yeah.
And like my in-laws are perfect pickuppers and drop offers. They do it regularly, but you get the summer grandparents doing it, and it's chaos.
Well,
It's
now where
chaos.
do we go again?
Yeah. They're backing up. They're parking where they're not supposed to.
Do you have cones?
Anyway. No cones. That's the problem.
Oh, you need to get some cones out there.
So this particular school in question that I'm talking about has not only crossing guards, but they've gone from small, regular looking cones to big orange and white candy corn cones, because apparently people try to get either weave in and out of those or drive over them occasionally.
Just need to bring out the concrete barricades next. Let's go.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Every day, every morning of summer drop-off is like the car chase scene from Boyd. Like it's just hubcaps everywhere, people dragging their cars,
kids hopping out of the cars while it's still moving.
What you got Scotty Scheffler in your drop-off line or what?
Yeah, I got cops hanging
allegedly.
Not even allegedly anymore. Those were dropped.
Getting their $80 pants ripped. Yeah.
Beyond repair, Brunsey.
Sorry. Excuse me.
I feel like the drop-off line in the summer is probably like Dodge and the interstate on Saturdays. You don't have your normal rush hour crew. You got people that normally don't go those directions. And so even though there's less traffic, it is a nightmare.
I just don't understand why we can't take 80 east or west on Dodge and not have it be backed up.
It's always backed up.
Nothing's impeding progress. Just
people
drive.
Just slow down.
Yeah.
God, it's crazy. Everybody getting off on 132nd to go to Walmart. They even give you another option to go 114th and 120th. Get your ass in gear. Brunsey, I got to ask you something because your colleague started this a couple of weeks ago. Well, last week.
Which one?
It was Mike J, and he was talking about like making the observation that everybody is uniquely pulling in the same direction, whether it's support staff, recruiting, coaching, strength and conditioning, nutrition. And it just got me thinking as we listened to that Coach Campbell clip. Are these things that when we hear them say, hey, such and such is responsible for this. He collects the data. I do this. It all goes back to reporting to the big man. And I believe in communication, and he processes so you can tell it's well oiled. Is this just like, wow, this is cool? We haven't seen it done like this before? Or do you get the sense, you know what? This is just what functional programs should be doing all the time. We're not used to it.
Both. I mean, I think that's what functional programs should be doing. I mean, college football programs that have the resources that Nebraska does are, I mean, for lack of a better comparison, they're corporations, right? Like you've got so much money involved. You've got a really large group of people that are working for you, and everybody has the responsibilities. I mean, I think more of it is the structure that you provide that. And I think that's the difference. I mean, when you talk to a lot of people on Matt Rule's staff, not a lot is kind of left to chance. You know what I mean? Like, I think people know what they're supposed to be doing. They know what their little corner of the world is that they have to be responsible for and to dominate. And you also have the expectation that, like, you know, Matt Rule kind of has his hands in everything and wants to know everything. And I mean, as an example, you know, I've covered 5 camps this week, and even if it was a 14-year-old kid who, you know, was probably only just working out because, hey, it's a chance to go work out in Memorial Stadium, play a little football. Like, every one of those reps was being recorded by somebody, and somebody was probably going to watch those reps. You know what I mean? Like, that level of detail, I think, is probably what stands out to me the most. Like, and I think good programs and good organizations kind of have the common trait that you're good at details. Like, that's what you do. And I mean, Matt Rule has high expectations for people. I mean, he talks about that repeatedly, and you know, I think he challenges people to step up and do things, and I think people respond to that. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think there's a level of organization there that has not been at Nebraska in quite a while. And I think part of that is just because of the way that Matt Rule runs his program.
Interesting. That answers it well enough to get a follow-up, because it led me to believe. So the part that may actually be unique is the fact that we have a head coach that dabbles in, like, you know, folklore studies. He's an avid reader. He's talked about Malcolm Gladwell. Like, we know he's extremely bright. You have to have somebody there that can actually process the data too. It's not just enough to churn and burn the numbers, but there's like this applicable component where it's like, okay,
find meaning.
All right, well, so what do we do? What do we do with what I know?
Yeah, well, and I think what helps that too, and you're right about Matt Rule. I mean, I think he spends a lot of time thinking about those things, about recovery, about, you know, the way that they're lifting, the way that they're eating. I mean, that's why they went out. I have never in my life gotten a message from somebody, one of my coworkers, about the fact that the hire that they made on the nutrition staff was a big loss for an SEC program.
Yeah,
like, that's not,
yeah, but you got one this time, didn't you?
Yeah, so,
she's incredible.
Yeah, but I mean, my broader point is like, as much as Matt Rule thinks about all those things, and you kind of have to, he goes out and finds the right people that are experts in what they do, and kind of, you know, lets them work. Like, I don't think that he's, you know, a micromanager. I think he thinks about things, but I think he also gives people latitude to kind of do what they're going to do and what they're good at. So, I think good programs, and I've thought this for a while, mainly from a recruiting point of view, but the programs that generally recruit well, it's the head coaches that are among the best recruiters on the staff and set the tone for everybody else and set the expectation. And I think that Matt Rule, the one thing that he does a really nice job of is he sets the tone and the expectation, you know, in a lot of different areas that I don't think a lot of college coaches probably do.
We're talking with Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Bruntz, I'm glad you brought up the term micromanage, because as we're having this conversation, and I agree, I don't think he micromanages his staff, and I think it very clearly puts talented people in positions to do what they're talented at. Where I do think you could make the argument if it went wrong is with the players. They ask very specific, very detailed things of their players, and they kind of walk them through that process like you were talking about earlier. And I think that's necessary in order for development. But my question then is, how do you prevent that type of philosophy from turning into micromanaging your players' lives?
Yeah, at some point the players do it themselves.
So when they take ownership of the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about setting a standard. It's about setting expectations, and then, the hope is that, you, as time goes along, you have to police things a little bit less and less, and you have Ty Robinson policing things, or Isaac Gifford saying, no, this is how we do things. I think there's probably a little bit of a entry delay for some of the younger guys coming in and getting used to doing things in a very particular way. But, I always go back to something Matt Rule said. He said he gives his staff and players the gift of high expectations. And that always stuck with me, because I was like, oh, that's an interesting way of putting it. And I get what you're saying, Ravi. I think though, at some point you get the players owning it more than a position coach having to kind of constantly be over somebody's shoulder and always checking that they're doing the right things.
Like when Gifford hops in and kind of corrects somebody
can take
on
over a drill. Yeah.
Versus Cooper having to do it.
Right. Or, I mean, there's only so much time that coaches can be around players too. So, a lot of the summer stuff is player run, and that's where you're leaning on those veterans to run things.
You know what's interesting? Because it's a good thing I'm learning to be a good listener after 50 years. I was 50 years old when I learned to listen to a conversation that doesn't directly involve me. I'm listening to the micromanaging and the autonomy thing. And there are times where I know Coach Rule may go read or get on the treadmill or go get a workout in with Coach Campbell or something when they're in offensive and defensive meetings. And sometimes I kind of didn't believe it at first until I've actually seen the practical application of it. And I asked him about it, and he says, I want to empower my coaches. They're paid a salary. They need to be able to do their job. They're hired because I trust them to do a job. But let's not kid ourselves, DB. I'm still in the know when and how often I want to be. How much of what you guys are kind of talking about with the passing off versus the term micromanaging has to do with the fact he knows when he can want to know things all the time, but knowing when to let things happen in the natural course of what they do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a feel thing.
I kind of agree. Yeah, that's a good term, feel.
And I don't know. I mean, I think my sense is that he has a pretty good idea of how he wants things to run. And I don't know. I mean, you're a coach. I mean, are there times where you kind of let things happen and kind of see if it can be a learning experience? And there's probably times where okay, this is going a little sideways. Let's get in here and get things back on track. I mean, I think that's part of it. And it's the thing you brought up about, him kind of wanting to know what he wants to know. I mean, it was clear, last spring that he was watching a lot of interviews that were being done with assistant coaches and kind of hearing what they were saying, because he would bring it up.
Yeah. Good call, Bruntz.
And I was, yeah, I mean, he was aware of what was being said out there. For sure. And I think that's kind of an example of it. I mean, I'm sure he's probably not sitting there clicking through every interview from spring ball, but if there was one he wanted to listen to, I'm sure he was able to find it pretty easily.
So, okay. He just keeps Bruntz, man, we don't hang out enough. Okay. So to that, the balance, again, I'm going to use the word, the balance between being in the know and kind of having rabbit ears, we've seen ruin some head coaches here, right?
Yeah.
But Coach, he has this way of letting you know he knows without. He doesn't seem passive aggressive or petty, but you do understand, and it's a great catch by you, and I'm sure your colleagues are there as well as some other bright guys, but he lets you know he hears what's being said, right? But he doesn't come across as paranoid.
No.
Or does he? I don't want to put words in your mouth. For me, he doesn't. I think he's pretty crafty.
Well, I mean, it's there. What's the old Sports Illustrated article about Bobby Knight was the rabbit chaser thing. If you keep chasing the rabbits, eventually the elephants will kill you. Like you can get caught up in the minutia of things or chasing things that are unimportant or score settling or whatever. I think that sometimes can be an issue for coaches, especially at big programs, and kind of figuring out what's worth your time. I've never gotten the sense from Matt Rule that he's been particularly hung up on that stuff. I mean, like even in post game and things like that, he'll mention sometimes like I've heard this week or
the infamous Maryland reference. Well, last week you guys wanted me to kick the field goal, right? I mean, I heard that.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. So I don't know. He's been around enough. He gets it.
Yeah.
He understands that piece of it. But yeah, I mean, I think your read of it's probably correct. I mean, he's pretty good about letting people know what he reads and hears, and I mean, I think he's very aware of narrative things. I mean, even going back to last spring with the discussion about what Heinrich Harburg's role was going to be, I think he was clued in pretty quickly about what people were saying about that.
Bruntz, so there's this thing that DB brings up all the time, and something he wants out of his Nebraska coaches, and that's that he doesn't want it as the head coach. He doesn't want it to have been their best job as a head coach. Do you think that matters in the way that Rule processes information? Like if you're coming from
his experience,
that's
sure.
what I mean. If you're coming from never being a head coach like Bo Pelini, or if you're coming from UCF like Scott Frost, or you're coming from Oregon State like Mike Riley, and you just have no familiarity at all with, not in a real sense of like what it's actually like in a place like Nebraska, like how much of it do you think is that where it's just like, oh, he's kind of seen, like it got pretty ugly at Carolina there for him.
I mean, Baylor had to be awful,
especially at the beginning, right? Like Baylor had to be terrible. Carolina got ugly at the end. Like, is it just a matter of like, I've been through this, what you guys say, like there's just an experience and maturity there that we haven't, just from their resumes, haven't had from many Nebraska coaches recently?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a unique resume for sure. I mean, I think probably being a player at Penn State was pretty instructive too. I mean, I think you probably get when you're in a big program like that, I think it's really valuable experience. Obviously what he went through at Baylor, I mean, that's pretty darn unique. And, I mean, Temple, he had to build at Temple too. I mean, that was the other thing. I mean, that was not a job where every year that was just going to kind of run itself. So,
yeah.
I mean, I even think back to, I think there's value in kind of having to go through things too that are just kind of unique. Like, I don't know if this is a good example, but even like Tim Miles, what he faced his first year at Colorado State. I mean, some of the stories he tells about, things that you have to navigate. I mean, teammates with guns and stuff like that. I mean, like that's not in like the coaching handbook. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, he in terms of Matt Rule, I mean, I think he's just kind of the sum of all those various experiences. And he's, this is his third college program that he's led. I'm sure he learned a lot in the NFL about what works and what doesn't, and kind of reflecting on that. So I think it's all valuable. And you're right though. I mean, he does have a very different resume from coaches that have come into Nebraska over the last 20 years.
It's interesting that you say that again. I'm thank goodness I'm learning to listen. there's been this bugaboo, right, about the Metro and why can't coaches just go 45 minutes? And your colleague is infamous. He had one of the greatest meltdowns ever when he's like, it's not that hard. It's Friday nights. Like, they're in town. Like, get in your car. And Coach Rule would say, I've been to Philly, right? East Philly. I've been to, you should see where I recruit some of these guys out of. You think I'm intimidated by coming into Omaha? Nebraska hasn't been able to lock up a city that's 45 minutes down the road. He goes, it's nothing. I respect the city, but I'm certainly not going to be uncomfortable. And I just was like, that must be that simple versus easy thing, because you say it so casually, and I believe every word of it, because you do. You'll come here a couple times a week, and it's, hey, no big deal, right? You're going to do your thing. And it has been very, very hard, for whatever the reason, for people to get over that hurdle. I think a lot of it has to do with his experience.
Was it? I mean, you can speak to it better than I can. I mean, it's just time, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, is it that simple? Like,
well, so Bruntz, what do you do with the fact where he says, he'll go to a basketball game, or he'll hang out with somebody that may not be super popular, or he'll sit with somebody or be seen somewhere, and he said, listen, I'm going to do me. I'm going to live my life authentic. The quote, he was great, right? He's like, I don't cheat on my wife. I don't do this. I don't do that. Like, I'm going to be me. I'm not going to live in fear of being authentic. And I just was like, it was so refreshing to hear, because that's all I've ever wanted. Not all, that's a big part of what I wanted from leadership. Like, whoever you are, be that person. And once he said that, I'm like, gosh, we so have a chance. He's not going to be bogged down by the tradition coalition or whatever that term is, or former players, or what. Like, he's going to do things his way, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about the Metro. I mean, I'm sure that was a big part of it. I mean, just the other part of it is too. I mean, whatever happened before is not on Matt Rule's tab. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
and he's clear about that too, isn't he?
Right. It's true though. I mean, like, you can't go back, 8 years ago and send multiple assistants to Omaha. But I mean, authenticity probably goes a long way, and just being upfront with people. I mean, that's not unique to Omaha. And I think that's why he's had a lot of success. Recruiting to this point. Authenticity and relationship building is a big thing in recruiting, and it always will be.
That's Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. Bruntz,
not on your tab, Bruntz. I love it. I'm gonna put that on a T-shirt.
We appreciate your time as always. We'll talk next week.
See you guys. Thanks.
Thanks, buddy.
Don't forget, wearing your seatbelt can prevent injuries and save lives, but only if you wear it properly. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We are back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. You can hear us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're live on the Pillar Exterior stage. You kind of do a little head bob there. You all right? You doing okay?
I almost made another face, but we seem to have a lot of comedians in our
making some
YouTube
faces?
StreamYard that catch me doing weird stuff. And I haven't forgotten that I'm on.
It seems like maybe you do forget sometimes.
I just do my own thing. It keeps me sane too. Like, I'm not just gonna sit here and be like, "Hey, Dad, like, that's a horrible take about Missoula. Come again."
I'm not even wrong. I'm not even wrong.
So you always ask me. This is a different kind of trivia. You know how we like to play it on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't like alma maters or anything. But do you remember?
I do like alma mater trivia. But
yeah, me too. Do you want to play?
Yeah, we can play at some
it's
point.
Kind of weird. Hey, can I come over? Did you used to have your friends say, hey, can I come over?
I was telling you, that's what I was telling you about the NCAA. That's like what me and Busky used to do.
Do you want to come over and play?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird now.
Be like, hey, you wanna play some NCAA?
We graduated to saying play dates, and that kind of weirds me out. I'm going to go to Charlie's birthday. Wait, who the heck is Charlie? You're 6. I'm not going to Charlie's.
Can I come over and push some weights?
Now that we could definitely do.
I do still have a bunch of weight equipment in my basement that I am not using right now.
Hey, It's like a gym membership without having to pay. No, do you remember what I told you after? This wasn't even like, this was the time I was down and I talked to Parker, the running back.
Yeah.
So not like the whatever, but Kristen pulled us aside. Do you remember what I told you when I said, I just get the sense this is going to be tailor-made if he can just do what?
Jamarion or
Caleb.
Do what he's told.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Ding, 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 ding. Listening to her say that is exactly why I think she should be on recruiting trips. Because if you listen to her and you spend any amount of time and you watch what a boss she is, you want your kids around somebody like that.
Yeah.
Like, listen, you want to know how to grocery shop? Hang around Kristen. You want to know how to eat? Hang around Kristen. You want to know that your kids are getting the best food. Do you know how long it took her to parse through the food service? She treated that thing like it was the CBS Paramount Sky Mountain merger, which I think just fell through.
Yeah.
Right? Like she was not playing around. Like, she can say things like, you think I'm going to take this job and not get to do this the way I want it? Do you really think I'm not going to get to hire who I want? Do you not think that this area is going to look the way that I want? I want cooking stations. We're not doing the buffet thing. And it's like, I know I always say deep down kids want to be led, but so do adults. And I felt like after what, now keep in mind, I see her on the road too. Like, so I see the practical application of her job. She's a total, like, she's the real deal. And so if you could just do what you're told, and it's, you're going to give me vitamins, you're going to give me good food, you're going to make sure that I'm getting proper rest, you're going to test me with you're going to make sure that I'm operating at maximum efficiency and I don't have to do this on my own. What could be better? Ask your 37, soon to be 37-year-old self that. What could be better?
Yeah. Well, so here's the caveat with all that, though. Right?
Oh Lord, are you gonna wet blanket me, Linus?
No, I'm not. I agree with you. Most kids want to be led. But I think the older you get, the more qualifiers there are to that. When you're like a little kid,
come on now, sure.
Right, but it's important. It's an important distinction, right? Because sometimes that differentiation happens younger for people than others. Sometimes by the time you're 18, you're not hearing it from anybody, and maybe you're not going to be that successful because of it. And I think that
some of those guys end up going home.
Yeah, some of those guys end up going home. Some of those guys don't end up coming to Nebraska in the first place because they're like, that doesn't really seem like it's for me, right? And they might be good players, they might be good athletes, they might be really good at football, and Nebraska's will be like, hey, probably not a good spot for us. Probably not a good fit for you. Let's move on, right? There are things there that you have to be, whether it's, we talk about rigor, and I think people think we're talking about the physical nature of football where you're going to get beat up, right? Physically, it is the most difficult thing of the major sports that we do, right? It is the most insane of the major sports that we do, especially with Caleb back there punt returning like his ding dong of a dad.
It's unnecessary.
being a punt returner is full psychopath behavior.
It's kind of unnecessary.
It is. It is.
All right.
You're just looking straight up into the sky, waiting for people to come hit you.
Yep.
What could go wrong? Anyway, but there's a type of rigor that is different from the physical beating that you take playing football. There's a mental rigor. There's a most people call it discipline, but that's hard on some people, especially if you've never had it. If this is the first time in your life you're being led, man, that's like,
let me ask you something.
Nails on a chalkboard to some people.
I'm vibing. Would you rather be that? Would you rather be a blank slate, young, or the guy or gal that's got to go to work every day that questions the validity of their being, right? Because when you get to that point, and sometimes you process that psychologically, you're like, you know how many adults can't do the same thing at a consistent level every day? So
I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they do.
No. I'm just curious. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Would you be like kind of like Coach Coop said when it comes to developing, where you don't have certain skill sets, so he can just teach you and not reteach, or would you rather have the experience so you can pit it against your initial what you called caveats?
Yeah. So I think to me, it's really not about the like if you have to choose, if you're teaching, hey, I'm taking this lump of clay and I can mold them, or I got this other guy, it's a finished product, but maybe
I at least want you to have a frame of reference.
But maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's not a great. Maybe he doesn't learn really well in terms of like maybe he's not teachable. That's the word I'm looking for. Maybe he's not super teachable, not super coachable. But man, he's really good already.
Yeah, we use that with ready-made sales guys.
Yes, right. Or you've got this like, hey, this is all the raw materials I need to turn into a good football player. But right now, it is just a guy who's fast on a track. But everything else is there, but I have to turn him into the football player.
You think guys that hire and gals that hire at a high level like the fact that there's some baseline things, i.e. track times or how high to jump or sales experience, or is the key to good people that bring in good people, they're like, I need this, this, and this. I can teach you the rest.
Yes, 100%.
The latter.
If you're just looking for people that have experience doing the things you need, you're going to fail with those people more often than you fail with people that you're like, hey, these are good people. These are people I want to work with. I can teach them the skills. Like you want to take real practical application. Like that's the real world application of that. But here's the problem that you run into with whether it's, and I'm not trying to use experience as a bad word, right? But that's just kind of what we're talking about here. The people that are kind of entrenched in the way they do things, a lot of times, A, they're not real teachable, they're not real coachable, and B, a lot of times they're missing crucial elements, whether it's a discipline, whether it's an ability to withstand rigor, whether it's an ability to take accountability for things.
I'm with you. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
And you tell me what you'd rather be. Would you rather be kind of a polished DB, a little bit closer to like, let's say Boodle, right?
Or
young guy.
Bly Hill?
No, not so much, because I think Bly had a lot of work to do. Like
I was using Bly as the raw.
Okay, that's fine. Let's use Bly
Hill. They
Hill.
really like his frame and whatever.
And right, he's the guy that you could. They were like, hey, if the season starts tomorrow, would play. Or would you rather be? Because you have to have both. Or would you rather be a guy that has that's like, let's take Caleb, that says, you know what, I'm working on this catch technique. It's a little new. I want to get past that, and then I think I can do this, this, and this. Right? Because the same guy is coaching you.
Yeah.
But it's different things.
I'm taking the second guy. I want the second guy. I want the guy that hasn't scratched the surface yet on what he's capable of and is willing to do all the things that I've asked him to do.
Okay, that's fine.
That's the guy I want.
But if you're a developmental program, you better know how to stagger those two things.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't have time to be taking the second guy.
That's the fallacy. You always have time to take the second guy.
Well, it's a fallacy.
It's that you always have time to take the second guy. We let external pressure think that we don't have time for it, but you know what you don't have time for? To miss with the first guy and then realize you need the second guy. That's what you don't have time for.
That and tough hangs.
You got me to nod on that one a little bit.
That's what you don't have time for. Coming up next, we do have time for our guy, John Rathouz. We're going to talk a little U.S. Open here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln, and we're brought to you by Durkin Designs. There's been a ton of weather going on. I thought I might need some work after last night. Things were getting a little dicey in my neighborhood, and if I did, I would have called 402-779-4444 to get a hold of Durkin Designs. They can do maintenance, cleanups, but if you just need a little ambiance in your backyard, ambiance, I don't know how to say it. It's fine. You get lighting, you can get water features, you can get retaining walls, paver patios, whatever you need. Or if you just need your dogs to stop barking at the dogs.
I need to call, and Sasha told me to call them.
We can put in some hedges. You can do whatever you need to do.
Listen, I'm not even going to be fancy pants. I'll just take remaining materials. He's creative. He's got great pictures on the site.
Oh, yeah.
Just give me like a quarter of that. Your old rocks, man. He could probably make those look fancy.
Don't be fooled by the rocks that he got. He's not Jenny from the block. He's Durkin Designs, 402-779-4444. Joining us now on the Hurrdat Hotline is John Rathouz. He's a former PGA caddy as well as a host of the Quiet Please podcast here on Hurrdat Sports Network. What's up, John?
Morning, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Good. Are you going to chastise me? We've got the quad box going on here in the studio, and I fell in love with the famous driving twirl in Tiger's hands on number 1, and since then he's gone 2 over through 10. Did I fall for the fool's gold? And you're like, you sucker! Like you watched all the pressers on week that he was playing. DB, you ding dong. It's fine, John. I fell for the okie doke.
Man, it's always tempting. He's so good, such a legend, and I just saw him miss another par putt, and it's probably not going the way he wants to. The ball striking doesn't look amazing. The putter looks actually pretty good so far. But yeah, I think him making the cut, I think that's still very much in play, but he's got to kind of grind this out here for the back 9.
Is it too easy just to be like, hey, Scheffler's killing it, like he's probably going to win this thing again? Like, is it just until further notice Scheffler's the dude?
Well, it's a major. You got Brooks.
Yeah, I mean, Brooks is making his name known here early on, and he actually led this thing early on back in 2014 before anyone knew who Brooks Koepka was. So he likes it around here. I mean, Scheffler obviously is the man right now. I will say that, you saw Scotty make a big number at the Memorial last week. That is much more possible here for every golfer in the field. I think the golf course is going to be a big story this week. It's an awesome test. I had a chance to caddy here back in 2005. It was a little bit of a different golf course then, but still the guts are there. And I mean, I think Scotty, just like anyone else, you hit a ball a little too hard or a little too soft, all of a sudden it's back down at your feet. You make a double bogey, like you can, get out of rhythm quickly. So I don't think it's just like open and shut case that Scheffler's going to run away with this thing this week, although he very well could win.
Okay, I understand full well. I love the sport, so I know you need them all. But I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire, and you have to rank these in order of importance for this course for the Open this weekend. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Ball striking, mental fortitude, or the ability to shape shots. Shot shaping, fortitude, or ball striking. Rank them.
Yeah. Okay. So I think if you're going to win the thing, number 1 is going to be mental fortitude, just because it's the U.S. Open and it takes guts to win it, and it takes that all 72 holes. Then I'll say ball striking, and then shot shaping. Although shot shaping, DB, this week is key, and it's why it plays into Scheffler's hands so well. Is that you're like, how are you controlling the spin on your irons when they're coming into these greens, because they're saucers upside down, and there's so much less square footage to hit into here to hold these greens. They're super interesting greens. So that's how I'd rank it this week.
John, so let me get some deep cuts from you here. Is there anybody that outside of, whether it's Brooks or Scheffler, Xander Schauffele's been playing well recently. Is there anybody outside of that kind of top group that you're like, hey, I really like how they're playing and their game, whether it's the mental fortitude, whether it's the ball striking, you go, I think they might have a shot to maybe not win, but give us a good, maybe top 10 finish?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple names that are playing well coming into this thing. 2 different points in their career, but guys that I think could make some noise this week. I think Tom Kim, just started to show some real good life here in the last couple of weeks. He's playing awesome. He had top 10s at last year's U.S. Open and the British Open. Hasn't been as good this year in the majors, but I think this is a golf course where if you don't hit it as far, you can still contend. So I like Tom, especially with Paul Tesori in the bag. And then I think, this one popped up on my radar from somebody else, so I can't take credit, but Billy Horschel, had a win about a month or 2 ago. He's won a U.S. Am before, has never played awesome in the majors, but I know that the guys that maybe don't have the length, but have some savvy and some short game and some guts, they really have this one circled on their calendar, especially this year because of the golf course and and the way it sets up for everyone.
Full disclosure, it was during the break this morning early, and I said, is it time to invest in Billy Horschel Walker? When I was joking with Ravi off air, as God is my witness. But let me ask you something, John. When should I reinvest? And if you're going to talk to me about putting, I get it. You're going to kill my thunder. It's fine. But Daniel Berger benefited from it in 2020. When is it time for me to get back on the Colin Markawa train?
Yeah, I think now. I mean, I think he was off to a good start this morning. Him and JJ have been grinding all week long in the practice round, scouting this out. They're here to win this thing. He's played well all year long. He played well at the PGA. He played well at the Masters. Like, he's done everything this year but win. He won at the end of last year. Like, I think if you're not back on now, you're going to be late to the party. So I think like today, as I see it, like, he's going to lurk and grind, and maybe he'll shoot even, 1 under, 1 over. But I think he will be on that first page of the leaderboard on Sunday afternoon. And I think he's got, more wins coming his way this year.
We're talking with John Rathouz, former PGA caddy and the host of the Quiet Please podcast. Talk to me about Rory McIlroy a little bit here. This is a guy that's been finishing in the top 10, I believe, 5 straight U.S. Opens, 12-1 odds, and nobody's talking about him at all.
Yeah, the headline that grabbed for Rory this week is that he's not getting divorced anymore.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're back on. They've reconciled, baby. Always happy for you.
And I'm happy for him. And I mean, it's just, I don't know who need to talk to about Rory right now. Maybe his therapist. It's just, it's the professional golf world's a tough place, and you're on the road a lot and stuff. So, I mean, the fact that those are the headlines for him right now, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. He can catch, fire at any point. I do like these kind of firmer, linksy-ish golf courses for a guy like Rory that grew up in Europe. But, it's so hard to make predictions on him. Like, we want him to win another one, but you just don't know if it's going to be this week or not.
Hey, safe to say, he kind of he's the closest to getting the Tiger Woods treatment, right? Like, not even Dustin Johnson gets the benefit of the doubt in every major like Rory does without having won a major for so long, right? I get it. DJ's more recent, but Rory always gets kind of the benefit of the doubt because we always say, gosh, he's capable.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at
2014 was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. Look at what he's done in the meantime. Like, his game, like, statistically is better. Yeah. He's winning at a higher clip. He's finishing in the top 5 almost every week. So, like, it's not like he's like faded into oblivion. So,
he just hasn't won a major.
Yeah, he just hasn't won a major, and that's the benchmark. Now that in the Tiger era or just the post Tiger era, it's like, what have you done for me in the majors? And I don't really care about anything else.
You realize he was number 1 for 122 weeks. Rory McIlroy.
Oh, Morikawa just curled one in there for you, DJ.
I see it. Listen.
Nice catch by the hole, huh?
Hey, get in here. Get in the hole. I like how he looks at it, too, like, I knew that was going in.
Yeah.
Look at that little sly look back.
Good catch. Good catch.
All right, John, real quick before we let you go here, if you had to give a pick for who you think ends up taking this thing, who you got?
Well, let's just have some fun and say our boy Aubert gets it done this week. First major win and a second major championship teed up. And his caddy, Joe Scovern, was on the bag for Ricky Fowler, finishing second here, in 2014. So there's some additional experience on that one. So we'll make that the pick. But, last time we did this, you had me on at the same time. We had Xander up on the board early, and we talked about Xander, and we said that he could get it done, and Xander went out and got it done. Yeah. So I like this. You guys bring me on with the board kind of already going a little bit. So let's go with Aubert this week.
That's John Rathouz, former PGA caddy, host of the Quiet Please podcast. Make sure you go subscribe to that. John, we appreciate it, as always. I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Always great, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Make sure you get out to HuskerFanTravel.com for the Nebraska Alumni Association's USC game travel package. You've got a host of different options to choose from, including getting your tickets directly through their service there. That's HuskerFanTravel.com through the Nebraska Alumni Association. Make sure you go check it out. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. This has been Hurrdat Sports Radio. We'll be back tomorrow here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, Camp War, and Lincoln.